Okay, welcome everyone. Wonderful to see everybody. As we welcome in Irving Fishbaum, Aaron Swade, and Marshall Castle, Mordechai Sultan, Shelley Zeitlin, Baruch Ian, Dr. Guy, Nachman Chapler, Yitzi Muller, Michal, and we have there Reb Kramer, Yisrael Fisher from Tannersville, Rabbi Kranz, Saba. Welcome back to Eddie Chazan. And we have Mel Zachter, Ruven Pollack, Richard Rosenzweig, Ilya Shutman, Abba Steinhauser, David Helfgott. And if you remember, we said that Rabbi Yishmael says that when Marshall damages Baruch, so he has to pay from the best property of the Nizik, of Baruch's best property. So now the Gemara explains what this means. Ela Amar Rav Acher bar Yaakov, as we start the top line of Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph. Ela Amar Rav Acher bar Yaakov, Hacha b'mayaskinan, and Sandy Grunfeld has just joined us. Hacha b'mayaskinan kigayin shoyse idias denizik, that Baruch's best property is kiziburias demazik, is as valuable as Marshall's worst property. Marshall is, a big tomato, as you heard, in Chicago, and he has many levels of property. And Baruch's property, his best property, is like Marshall's worst property. So Rabbi Yishmael Sava, but in Nizik Shaminan, he damaged Baruch. He only has to pay Baruch's best property. So Marshall could give him from his worst property, which is equal to Baruch's best property. Rabbi Akiva Sava b'demazik shaymina. Rabbi Akiva says, no, we evaluate it by the best property of Marshall the Mazik. That has a ring to it, M&M, Marshall the Mazik. And therefore we have to give the best property of Marshall's. And the Gemara says, they argue in the Psukim. My time in Rabbi Yishmael, what's the reason Rabbi Yishmael? Nemra Sada Lamata, it says, Meitiv Sadeyu Umeitiv Karma Yishalim. V'nemra Sada Lamala, and it says earlier, Uvir B'stei Acher, if the animal destroys in another field. So Mas Sada Amura Lamala, in the pasuk of Bir B'stei Acher, it means the field of the nizik, the field of the victim. Av Sada Amur Lamata, where it says Meitiv Sadeo, Meitiv Karmo, it's the nizik. So he only has to pay the best that Baruch has. Rabbi Kiva Sava, a few things. First of all, it's very hot. And if I could tell you some water, please. Rabbi Kiva Sava, Rabbi Kiva says, no, look at the text of the pasuk. It says Meitiv Sadeu Meitiv Kamo Yishalem. So it's talking about the one that's paying. That's Marshall. Rabbi Kiva Sava Meitiv Sadeu Yishalem. The Haich to come Yishalem. Marshall is the Mazik. He's the one that he has to pay from his best field. So now Rabbi Yishmael can't deny. Thank you very much. Rabbi Yishmael can't deny that that's the pashtus of the pasuk. So Rabbi Yishmael says, from the Gzeirah Shava, we learned that Marshall only has to pay the best of Baruch's property. However, Rabbi Yishmael, ahani Gzeirah Shava, ahani kra. The Gzeirah Shava of Sada is beneficial, and the pashtus of the pasuk of Meitiv Sadeh, Meitiv Kami Yishalim is also effective. And it goes as follows. That when assessing the what kind of property, he only has to give the best property of the nizik, of the victim. So he only has to give the best property of Baruch. But ahani kra, let's say, what about the following situation? The islay lamazik idias v'zibayus. Marshall has in Chicago, Marshall Lamazik, remember M&M, Marshall Lamazik, he has two fields. He has a very good boardwalk property, and he has garbage property. Now, remember, he has to pay, we learned out, he has to pay for Nigzer Shav Sada Sada, the best that Baruch has. Baruch's best property is worth more than Marshall's Zeburius, but less than Marshall's boardwalk property. The Ziburis Didei, the garbage property that Marshall has, it's not, it doesn't match the better property that Baruch has. The Meshalim La Memeitiv, so then Marshall doesn't have a choice. He has to give him from his best, even though in this case his best is much better than what Baruch has. But if it's between giving worse than what Baruch has or better than what Baruch has, he has to give him better than what Baruch has. Now, Rabbi Kiva says, Rabbi Kiva argues on Rabbi Shmuel and says that the pasuk is only telling us to collect for damages from the best, which we learned means from the best that Marshall has. And we certainly say in the case of hektish. Now that's a very cryptic statement, an enigmatic statement. My kal v'chayim lehektish. What do you mean? And for sure by hektish. If Marshall's axe gored an axe of hektish that he has to pay for idios, Marshall's axe gores an axe of hektish, he's potter. It's a drasha. Shareyo amarachmana. It's only if it gores the shar of your friend. V'lo shar shal hektish. So you be potter. It must be Ella. It's where Marshall says, I accept upon myself to give a mana to temple maintenance. The Asi Gizber, the temple treasurer, comes with shakal me'idis, and he collects from Marshall's best property. So now the Gemara wonders, why should that be? In this case, Marshall is not a mazik. He's in debt to hektish. And remember, we said debts are paid from beininus, from the middle property. Lo yeh ela bal chayv, it's only a creditor, bal chayv dina bebeininus. And even if you'll tell me, suggests the Gemara, v'chi tema kasava Rabbi Akiva, that normally when you pay when you pay the creditor, you have to pay from the best. V'chi tema kasava Rabbi Akiva bal chayv shakal be'idias kenizakin, he pays from the best, but that's only in the private sector. How do we know that by hektish? He has rights and damages. Hektish that doesn't have any rights and damages. If a shar damages hektish, he doesn't get paid. And therefore you can't learn out that even if it has a din of a creditor, it should be be'idius like a regular creditor. You can't learn it out because hektish is weaker. Says the Gemara, no. It's talking about, you should have known it. Marshall has a shar, his name is Elsie, and a gourd a shar of hektish. And unlike the Rabbanan who say that Marshall is potter, Rabbi Kiva says if you gore a shar of hektish, we throw the book at you. We throw the book at you. Normally we know that when it comes to a shar, an axe, there's a tam and a muad. A first timer and a second timer only pays a chatzi nezek. A third timer pays a nezek shalom. Rabbi Kiva says the allowance of a tam only paying a chatzi nezek, the allowance of a tam only paying a chatzi nezek is only when it damages a common person. But if it damages a hektish, if it damages hektish, even if it's a tam, it pays a nezek shalom. Let's see that inside. That Marshall's axe gored an axe of hektish. Rabbi Akiva Savala Reb Shimon ben Menashe. Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold the drasha of Sharei Eu V'Lo Shar Shel Hektish. To the contrary, he holds like Reb Shimon ben Menashe The Tanya Reb Shimon ben Menasya Omer Shor Shel Hektish Shenogash L'Shor Shel Had Yid, a shor of Hektish that gores Marshal Shor Potter. Hektish is not responsible. B'Shel Had Yid Shenogach L'Shor Shel Hektish. Oh, Yad Hektish Alo El Yaina. Oh, we throw the book at Marshal. Bein Tam Bein Muad, whether Marshal Shor was a one-timer or a three-timer, Mishal Nezek Shalom. And it's telling you that when it pays a Nezek Shalom, Marshal has to pay from Idius. Says the Gemara, so maybe that's the only thing that Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva are arguing about. Who says they're arguing about whether you pay from the best of Baruch or from the best of Marshal, and it's a case where Baruch, the victim's Idius, is worth only like Marshal's worst property. Dilma de Kuli Alma, but in Nizik Shaiminan. Everybody holds that the Gezerah Shavah Sada Sada that we evaluate by the best property of the victim. And the only argument over here between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shmuel is what's the din with a Shor Shel Hektish and Naga Shor Shel Yisrael Naga Shor Shel Hektish. V'acha b'plukta Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya v'Rabbanan k'miflagi. The Rabbi Kiva Savalak Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya that a Shor Shel Yisrael Shenagach Shor Shel Hektish is chayiv and nezek shalom and pays from Idius. Rabbi Yishmael Savalak Rabbanan, and it's Potter. Says the Gemara, that can't be the only machlokes, because remember Rabbi Kiva started his comments by saying, Im kein mai loy ba'akasav. The Rabbi Kiva says loy ba'akasav ella to pay minametiv, which we interpreted to mean since meitav sodeo yishalem man the yishalem, and means the mazik. So you see, he's arguing also about what kind of meitav. If you're only talking about hektish, what do you mean? And kal v'chaim hektish, which implies it's talking about something else also. V'oid hamer Ravashi says it beferish. It says it clearly. Tanya behedya meitav sadeo meitav kama, the best of the field, the best of the vineyard. Yishalom meitav sadeo shel nizik. That's the best of the victim. Meitav kama shel nizik. Divrei Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Kiva meitav sadeo shel mazik. Meitav kama shel mazik. Ravina says, remember we had a kasha that the Mishnah says that by nizaken you pay idius mipnei tikkun ha'olam, for the benefit of the world. And we had a kasha, what do you mean for the benefit of the world? It's a beferish pasuk. Meitav sadeo, meitav kama yishalem. So the Gemara says, Ravina says another pshat in the Mishnah. Lo'ila masnisa Rabbi Akiva. The Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Kiva, that biblically speaking, we pay from the best of Marshal. I said, and what's the tikkun ha'olam? It's a pasuk. It's just saying the reason for the pasuk, because it's going according to the opinion of Reb Shimon that darshan's time of the krah. Reb Shimon explains the reasoning for the pasuk. Reb Shimon he the darish time of the krah. Umatam kama. Matam, what's the reason on Nizakan Shaman Lahem Be'idis? Why do we pay from the best? Mipnei Tikkun Ha'olam. It's for the benefit of the world. You know why? The Tanya, because remember, when we say Nezikin, we also include thieves and extortionists. Why is everybody looking at Marshall? It's amazing. I always knew your Gemara is good for something. Right, so it's true. So the Gemara says we enacted that you have to pay from the best because of thieves and because of extortionists. Kadesh Yomer Adam, that Marshal should think twice. He should say, why should I steal from Shelley? Why should I extort from him? The next day Bezdin is going to come and they're going to take from my best property. Lefikach Amru, this is the reason why the Torah says on Izakim Shamim Lem Be'idyas, in order to should be a deterrent that marshals shouldn't steal, marshals shouldn't rob. Now, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen.
I am a little bit under the weather, Rabbi say, so I am taking it a little easy, so I will not be giving a chok tonight either. And those that remember for years and years and years, for the last 40 years, sometimes I take off a week from the Chumash year. You used to take off 2 weeks that I didn't go into Rabbi Landau. But I will not be giving a Chumash year tomorrow night. It will be on TorahAnytime.com at 9 o'clock on Thursday. We'll be playing live shir from probably 6 or 7 years ago. Mirz Hashem will have our normal shiurim like normal, but I don't think it's good for me to speak for 2 hours in a row. Remember that Motzi Shivas B'Tamas, that's Thursday night. There's a special time for the shir. The shir is at 10:15. 10:15 after Shavas B'Tamas. If you are up in the country and you want to hear me talk about the fast, God willing, I should be able to. I will be speaking in the Woodridge Shul in Mirz Hashem between Mincha and Ma'ariv, and then before Ma'ariv again, before the second Ma'ariv at the Woodridge Shul. Now, Mipnei ma amru bal chayv b'beinanis. Why, when Eddie, who just came back in time to get into trouble, why when Eddie takes a loan, why when Marshall takes a loan from Eddie, why does Marshall have to pay b'beinanis? That's he pays from his mediocre property. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because we're afraid that Eddie will say, Marshall has a nice shop in Chicago. I'll give him a loan, he's going to default, and I'll take the shop. We don't want people to go looking to take advantage of people. He'll see that he has a beautiful field, a beautiful villa. I'll jump and I'll give him a loan. He won't be able to pay me. I'll take it away. That you shouldn't set your eyes on his beautiful villa. Says the Gemara, so then we should make it ziburius. Elamati hebi ziburius. Says the Gemara, no, that far we won't go, because if we go that far, then people won't give loans. And remember, we don't want to. Loans is the grease, is the lubricant that allows for business to go smoothly. Because if creditors will only be able to collect from the garbage, they won't give loans. The Gemara continues, Ksuvas isha biziburius. When a woman, if her husband dies or divorces her, she collects a ksuva, it's from the ziburius, from the lowest level. Divrei Yehuda. Rameir says no, a woman collects from beininus, from the medium level. Amar Shimon mipnei ma amru ksuvas isha b'ziburius. Why does Rabbi Yehuda say that ksuvas isha is from the lowest level? You know why? The ksuva is for her protection, that the husband shouldn't just go and walk away. He's not in the mood, he's tired, he wants a newer model, and walk away. So in order to deter him from walking away easily, we make him pay ksuva. The reason why we don't insist that it be beininus is because we don't need too much of a reason to convince a woman to get married. A woman wants to be married more than a man wants to be married. More than a man wants to get married, a woman wants to be married. The Gemara tells us in Masechtas Yavamis Tav l'meisiv tandu m'lemeisiv armel. It's better to live two bodies than to live alone. A woman wants to live two bodies. Davar acher. Now this davar acher sounds confusing. The Gemara is going to explain that this is a different point. This is telling us if a woman is afforded a ksuva for her protection, why isn't a man afforded a ksuva? If a woman just wants to walk away, she should have to give him a ksuva. So we'll see that's because a woman cannot give a get to a man against his will. Davar acher. Isha yoytzel l'ritzayna. A woman goes out only. A woman goes out l'ritzayna v'shaloi l'ritzayna. He could divorce her against her will. But v'ish eina motzia l'ritzayna. But a man can only send her away if he wants to. So my davar acher. What's the davar acher? So the Gemara says, because the Gemara is wondering, v'chi tema, ki eichi d'chi mapik lo ihu, where it comes for him sending her away. Tekinu la rabbanan ksuva minei, they were masakin a ksuva, that he shouldn't send her away easily, so that if he sends her away, he has to give her a ksuva, in order that he should think twice. So then why don't we say kinafke I, if she goes away irresponsibly, nami liskina le rabbanan ksuva, why doesn't the rabbanan make that she would have to pay him a ksuva? Mina. So Tajma, the Gemara explains, because Isha yaitzel ritzayin or shalai ritzayin. She goes out against her will. So in order to protect her, that he shouldn't send her away frivolously, we make a deterrent that he has to pay a big ksuva. But she can't just walk away. He only gives her a get with his consent. So if her leaving is frivolous, he'll delay giving the get. So we don't have to protect him with her giving him a ksuva. Now, we had a machloikis whether ksuvas isha is zibarius or ksuvas isha is beininus. Now, the Gemara now wants to make a difference, suggest maybe a difference between where he dies and where he divorces her. So says the Gemara, Amar marzutu breid Rav Nachman, loy amrun elam yasmei. Where do we say that ksuvas isha is zibarius? That's where he died, and she's collecting from the orphans. So then it's ziburius. Aval binei didei, but if he divorces her and she's collecting from him, then it's bebeininus. So the Gemara asks the obvious question. If it's from the assignment, of course it's ziburius. We said any collection from the assignment. Ein nefram and nichse assignment ela biziburius. So the Gemara says, "Miyasmei ma'yu ksuvas isha." Why only ksuvas isha? Afilu kol milei nami. Every collection, for a debt, for damages, tanan ein nefram nichse yisayim element is birds. Elulav, it must mean that ksuvas isha's biziburus is even where we're collecting it from him if he divorces her. Elulav minei. Says no. Loila miyasme. Maybe when we collect from him, if he divorces her, she gets from Beininus. But it's talking about Yisayim. Then why does it need to say Yisayim are Biziburius? Always when you collect from Yisayim and Ziburius, I might think that a Ksubas Isha is different. You know, we want to give the woman certain powers in order that she should want to get married. And therefore, uksuvas isha it's trichalei. Solkadai tachamina. I would have thought mishum china that men should find favor in her eyes, that she should want to get married. Akilu rabban and gaban. They let her collect from Yisayim bebain. And that's kamash malan. Amarava. A lot of Gemara here. A lot of Gemara. A lot of details. This is not a walk in the park, this Masechta. Now, when you learn a Masech like Bava Basra, there is a lot of details, but the dafim are small. Here, the dafim are pretty long, a lot of details. Amar Rabba, Tajma, Rameir says, Ksuvas Isha Bebeininis. Now, the question is, when Rameir says the Ksuvas Isha is Bebeininis, is he talking about when the husband dies and it's from the Yisaimim, or is he talking about when the husband divorces her? Miman. If you'll say it's from the Yisaimim, less later Rameir Hadit Nan, does Rameir not hold ain't the from in the same as Yisaimim element as Ziburius? Elalav Mina. It must be that it's talking Elalav Minay. It must be where the husband divorces her, and Rameir holds that it's bebeininis. Michlal derabbanan sabrei that from the husband, even if he divorces her, it's beziburius. Segmar loy. When Rameir says that it's beininis, it's even from the assignment. Loy loylam miyasme. So if it's from the assignment, ain't from nichse assignment element aziburius. So here Rameir holds v'shani ksuvas isha. The ksuva of a woman is different mishum china. It's different because we want the men to find favor in the eyes of the woman, so we give her a power to collect her ksuva from baininess, even from the assignment. Amar Abaya. Now let's look at our Mishnah. Tajma. Hanizok and Shaman Lam Be'idyas, damages are collected from the best property, or Balchayv Bebeininis, and Balchayv from middle property, or Ksuvas Isha Beziburius. Now, when it says Ksuvas Isha Beziburius, who is it talking about? When the husband died from the Yisaimim, or when the husband divorced her and she's collecting from the husband? Maman. Ilay Miyasme, well, the Yisaimim always collect from Ziburius, not just by Ksuva. Ma'yer Ksuvas Isha, afilu kol haninami. Elala minay. It must be that it's even if the husband divorces her, even then she could only collect from Ziburius. So now the Gemara has a very interesting thing. What happened over here is Avram has a son Yitzchak. And Yitzchak is not a very responsible person. So Avram goes ahead and he acts as a guarantor for the damages that Yitzchak does, for the debts that Yitzchak accrues, and for Yitzchak's wife's ksuva. If Yitzchak defaults, he acts as a guarantor. And Marshall says he wish he had somebody who could be a guarantor for him, right? But
that's Mark, isn't it?
Mark is much smarter than that.
Actually, he's not.
You're dragging me into this part, Mark. So.
Anyway.
What our pride's for.
Anyway, so says the Gemara, it's talking about such a case. Amar Rav Achaba Yaakov Hakaba Mayaskinan Kigain Shenasa Orav Leniske Benai. Avram became a guarantor for the damages of his son, L'Balchai Benai, to the creditors of his son, or L'Ksuvas Kalasai, and for the ksuva of his daughter-in-law. And now, when the son defaults, v'hai kidine, each one he does the normal method that the son would pay. Nizikin or balchayv, by damages and by a creditor, the mechayim gavu, which usually is collected from the son while he's alive. Ionami ki magve ki mechayim magve. So therefore, when they collect from him as a guarantor, he has to pay for the damages from idias and for the debts from baininus. But by a ksuvas isha, the normal case of Ksuvas Isha is where the husband dies. That's usually when a Ksuva is paid out. Divorce, especially in the olden days, was not so common. My father, Olav Shalom, told me before I got married that he lived in Not Salish and he never heard of a divorce. He says the neighboring town, which was a much bigger city, Munkach, he said there was a rumor of maybe one divorce. Divorce was very rare. So therefore, when Avram became an Arav, he became an Arav for the case of death. In the case of death, the collection would be from the assignment, which would be Ziburius. So he became an Arav for Ziburius, and therefore, since that's all he guaranteed, even if the son divorced her, he only put himself on the hook for the normal case, which is Ziburius. And that's what the Gemara says. Ksuvas Isha that normally de la'acha misa gavya, or la'acha misa meman gavya miyasme, iu nami, he also, when he put himself on the hook, ki magve ki la'acha misa magve, he pays from Ziburius. Says the Gemara, but wait a second. We're going to see in the next blot that a Orav for a Ksuva is not chayiv to pay. There's an exception that a guarantor for a Ksuva doesn't pay. V'teifiklei, says the Gemara, why should he pay anything? V'teifiklei the Orav the Ksuva lo mishtab, but he's not subjugated. Says the Gemara, here it's talking about where he's more than an Orav. He's an Orav Kablan. An Arav Kablan, this is something, if Mark was drunk, but it would have to be Shikr Kishikrusay Shaloit, then he would be an Arav Kablan for Marshall. What that would mean is that Mark, they could come to Mark even before going to Marshall.
Now that's what I call a friend.
Right, that's what I call an idiot. Now,
Don't think of my friends.
Yeah. Says the Gemara, Kablan, that's good according to the Mandiyama, a Kablan, Afal Gav the Lechlei, Nichse L'Loiva, even though Marshall doesn't have any money, still Mishtabit, Shopper. El Lamanda Amr, he Islay Mishtabit, only if he had the money at the time, Ileslay Loy Mishtabit. So in this case, where Yitzchak doesn't have any money, then L'chaira Avram should not be Meshubit, because Yitzchak doesn't have any money, so Avram shouldn't be Meshubit. And if Avram is not Meshubit, so then why does he have to pay Ziburius, Ma'ik L'meimer? So the answer is simple, that when he became a Kablan, Yitzchak had money, and then he had a field, and it got flooded. Iba Yisema b'dahavalei b'ishtadif. He had property and it afterwards got flooded. The Iba Yisema, a father and a son is different. A father is Meshabed. Mark with Marshall, maybe he wouldn't be Meshabed. But a father to a son is always Meshabed himself. Iba Yisema kol legabe brei, shibude Meshabed nafshi. Wow, what a long daf. Baruch Hashem. We're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis now.